Get ready to time travel through rock history. Today we are looking at the TC Electronics Jims800, which is based on the classic metal amps of the 1980s. Are you wondering whether the Jims800 is the amp sim that you've been looking for? Well, I've got you covered. When you first get the Jims out of the box, this is what it sounds like. Now, like with the original ampworx series, this has got a firmware update. However, we'll be checking that out later on in the video, so stick around. So off the bat, this one has some similarities with the Jims45 from the vintage series. But if you look closely, there are some subtle differences. They both sport a 3-band EQ. However, they have opted to put the control for the boost on the front of the Jims800. On the Jims45, of course, they had the high control instead. As this pedal is all about the gain, having that boost control as an easily accessible knob on the front is a really good choice. But doesn't that mean that the Jims800 is missing the tweakability that the Jims45 had? Well, actually no. TC have included a little trim pot on the back for the presence. Admittedly, this is a little bit fiddly, but I can understand why TC have made this choice. Now it is time to engage the boost and see how gainy this thing can get. Here's a little quiz for you music nerds out there in YouTube land. We've all heard the tale how the JCM amps are named after Jim Marshall. But what does the C stand for? Drop down in those comments below if you already know. And knowing you lot, there's some of you already tapping away on your keyboards with the correct answer. On one of the previous ampworx videos, Ian asked in the comments whether these were any good through headphones. Well, they sound exactly the same as they do in these videos, so that's good enough for me. But an absolutely great question. The firmware update on this had similar notes as detailed in the DC30 video. A link to that video is showing on screen now. The big change, of course, is with the cab sim, making it a smoother sound and easier to dial in a thicker tone. Here is an example of the cab sim before. And here is an example of it after the firmware update. Of course, using the EQ controls, you could adjust either to taste, but to my ear, the firmware update is an improvement and is well worth doing. Another thing that came up on the previous ampworx videos is whether these can take pedals well. It's not uncommon with high gain amps to push it with a green style overdrive. It gives it an extra push and tightens up that bottom end. This is what it sounds like when you run a green style overdrive into the front end. All of the examples so far have used the built-in cab sim, which sounds great as is. All of the pedals within the ampworx series have got a dry output, however, so if you don't quite fancy the sound of the built-in cab sim, you can add your own IRs. It handles this really well, and a bonus trick is that you can run both outputs to get an absolutely massive sound. of those classic 80s metal amps, the Jims800 really nails those tones. If you love the British amp sound but want a little bit less gain, the Jims45 is the one for you. On screen now is the video that Josh recorded for us on the Jims45. Consider subscribing to the channel, and I really appreciate that you made it to the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again soon.